Anime Problems is a series where I review anime problems that cannot be fit into their own video. If you have any topics you want to be explored, be sure to leave them in the comments down below, and it may or may not get picked for the next episode. And without further ado, now look, I don't have anything against anime movies. In fact, the idea of anime movies is actually pretty great. Because in theory, if an anime is created in a movie format rather than a serialized TV series format, then the movie will hypothetically have tighter pacing, better animation, and a greater potential for the IP actually producing a profit. Anime back in the day, however, was made with so many episodes that having great animation is something that only big-name studios could pull off, such as Toei Animation and Studio Parrot. But even those studios saw the value in producing anime movies, which is how we got masterpieces such as Dragon Ball Super, Jujutsu Kaisen 0, and Demon Slayer: The Mugen Train. These movies had animation so silky smooth that I had to resist the urge to pull out the Aveno. There's also the problem with piracy in anime, which can basically be boiled down to anime not being accessible enough across other streaming platforms. Anime movies, however, are pieces of content that you have to go out, touch grass, and actually watch in theaters after having to pay for it. This hypothetically would mean that the animation studios would get more money, and less MAPPA employees would survive on white monsters and 2 hours of sleep. Because the most piracy sites can do around this time is re-release the movies in footage so pristine that it looks like it was taken off a Samsung toaster. So with all these positives, I can hear you asking yourself, what is the problem with anime movies? Well, for me to answer that, I need to show you something. This right here is a bull. It's a bull. And this right here is Demon Slayer: The Mugen Train, which you might notice is released on February 25th, if this camera would fucking focus. But if we throw it in this magical bowl of despair, shake it up a little bit, oh shit, then what we get as a result is Demon Slayer: The Mugen Train. Wait a minute, October 10th? Anime? Fucking Melvin? Okay, shitty explanations aside, Demon Slayer basically deciding after releasing the Mugen Train movie to release the anime, which basically made no changes whatsoever. So a part of me just needs to ask, why? Why are we recycling the same content and re-releasing it as if it's something brand new? This isn't even the first time this has happened either. Everybody remembers when they reanimated the first two Dragon Ball Super movies and made them look like a fucking Arby's sandwich. Or Attack on Titan releasing so many parts of the same movie that I don't even know who's milking this series more at this point. Anime News Channel or MAPPA themselves? In literally none of these cases did the animation studios need to do this. Rather than literally editing 2 clips together in Premiere Pro, maybe they could have instead brainstormed some more ideas for what they could do in the upcoming Blu-ray release? Maybe work on Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3 or One Punch Man Season 3 or literally anything in your godforsaken catalog, MAPPA! No, maybe from a business perspective, this makes sense. Because you could basically just keep reusing the same content over and over again and make more money. But from a consumer perspective, I would prefer to see the ending to all my favorite animes before I die. Because this is like if Marvel released Endgame and then remade the entire movie into an 8-part episodic series on Disney Plus, which literally covers all the same content, just with more filler content in between. Like the philosophical meaning behind the Hulk giving Ant-Man his 2 soft tacos. Okay, I know I wrote that as a joke, but that actually kind of sounds pretty goddamn hilarious. But wait, there's more. Because for some reason, I've also noticed a problem with the English dub for animes releasing in movies within a relatively reasonable time frame. Like the finale for Attack on Titan, if I recall correctly, took over 6 months after the original Japanese dub came out. This was a problem for me because in my personal life, there was a friend I was binging the series with, and we watched the entire thing in the English dub. However, life happened, and he had to move across the country, and because Attack on Titan took so damn long to release in the English dub, we had to bite the bullet at the 6-month point of waiting and just watch it in the Japanese dub, because streaming it on Discord was not happening anytime soon. So as a fellow anime consumer to another, I must ask, why does it seem to only be a problem with anime movies? Look, I don't have anything against manga readers. They basically have the foresight into how multiple masterful animes will turn out far before they have been adapted to anime form. And if they would remain spoiler-free, I would love my manga bros. But they don't! See, a big disadvantage to watching Attack on Titan after literal decades of the anime and manga being released are the manga readers spoiling the entire series before the anime even gets adapted. Like, when I watched the series, I went out of my way to uninterest every piece of Attack on Titan content on every single social media platform that I was involved in, just so I would get the chance to watch the series spoiler-free. Also, the manga versus anime debate is probably one of the stupidest debates of all time, because it can basically be summed up as, why don't we just all have our own preferences and move on? Because look, it would be one thing if anime was just blatantly ignoring the manga and digging itself into writing corners, but majority of modern anime these days are super faithful to the manga, down to every last angle. At most, all I've actually seen the anime adaptations do is improve upon the source material, like the Sukuna vs Mahoraga fight. If we had it the way it was in the manga, this fight would have lasted like 2 seconds. But because the anime understood that Mahoraga wasn't just this random dude to be written off easily, they decided to extend the fight for the entire episode, but not with any talk no jutsu bullshit like, oh my god, you're so strong, Mahoraga. Oh, Sukuna, you're so strong. Oh no, you're so strong. But with non-stop action, this fight was straight hands. And look, I'm not here to say that anime is better than manga or vice versa, but what I am saying is that people need to stop nitpicking these super small details, because all you're doing is making the rest of us look like absolute nimrods. And you don't even need to watch the anime version if you don't want to. Once again, if you want to complain about the anime completely fucking up the source material, much like Berserk, I don't have a problem with that. But when you start to nitpick the absolute shit out of a series to the point that nobody would notice the difference unless you literally compared them side by side, well, I rest my case. I only have one simple question for this segment. Why? Ever since I started getting into anime at a young age, I've constantly needed to justify my reasoning for watching this medium just because of fan service! But let's take this back to scratch. What exactly is fan service? Well, fan service is basically just a small element added to a series with the intention of pleasing fans. Some examples of this would be a character cameo, maybe some Easter egg, or maybe just a random niche reference that only hardcore fans would get. Overall, fan service on this level is just a fun little thing added to the series just for the sheer enjoyment of it. One of my favorite examples of fan service is Goku in Dragon Ball Super shadowboxing his grandpa Gohan. Though it's subtle, it's a nice little detail which pays tribute to Dragon Ball. However, this isn't the only type of fan service in anime. Allow me to introduce you to something that you're probably already familiar with that I like to call Gooner service. Why, in these bullshit ass animes, do we have these random scenes of characters just being exposed for literally no reason whatsoever? I'm probably on an FBI watch list right now because the funny firefighter people decided the author needed to get off. Now look, if this shit was in something like a harem anime, I get that. Take your gooner bait to that category, bro. I could not give a shit less. Because if I decided to watch literal garbage, then surely I should be expecting literal garbage. But when I'm watching an action anime, a show that typically has very little room for any gooner bait, why is it 9 times out of 10 I have to be exposed? Fuck! I think the point of this section is to basically say, that there's a time and place for everything, and plenty of sites to throw that shit onto. But please, for the love of God, do not make it a mainstream thing, even though it basically already is. Trust me, there are plenty of things you can do to make your story better than just adding gooner bait, bro. Please, take a shot of post-nut clarity and get back to me on Friday when you have a better idea for your anime than another scene filled with gooner baits. That's all for this morning, folks. Goodbye!